Good afternoon, everybody. Sammy Thunder here. Welcome back to the channel. I remember when I first started getting into pre-war and really just wondering what is the best way to go about it. What's a good set to dip my feet into to be able to learn more about the different variations of cards. And the first thing that stood out to me and that other people have recommended is the T206 set. It's a great set filled with so many different back variations and tons of Hall of Famers. So obviously the next thing is how expensive do these cards get? These cards can get very expensive. Depending on the Hall of Famer, depending on the player, it can get very pricey. Even some of the common players can get very pricey too. You start looking at the minor leaguers and the southern leaguers, things start getting way out of hand in terms of price. However, I did some legwork and I put together 5 Hall of Fame players that you can get for really decent prices in good condition. I was looking online, seeing what these grades were going for, how they looked, and to my surprise, they looked phenomenal, and I think the price is pretty good. So I'm going to take you through 5 Hall of Famers that I think would be really good to collect if you are looking into getting into pre-war and want to collect Hall of Famers like I have. These are 5 good players to really step into. Let's take a look. So we start with Jake Beckley as our first card that I think would be a well-valued T206 Hall of Fame pre-war player. Now, Jake Beckley might not be a household name, but if we look at this card, which is a 1.5, and it looks absolutely phenomenal, this one went for $138 back in March. Now, for some historical facts about Jake Beckley, he was 4th all-time with 244 triples. He had a lifetime batting average of .309, 2,930 career hits, as well as an all-time record of 23,767 putouts. So Jake Beckley, great career, I think is a valuable, worthy Hall of Famer to collect. And I would definitely look into getting his card if you're stepping into some of the pre-war stuff. Be a good introductory player. Wahoo Sam Crawford. He was a longtime teammate of Ty Cobb, and they celebrated a lot of victories together. Obviously, like I mentioned, his nickname is Wahoo Sam. Lifetime career batting average of .309, 2,961 hits, and he holds the record for most triples at 309. Now, it is well known that he had a very intense rivalry with Ty Cobb. Crawford, when Cobb came into the league, Crawford bullied him, and over time, Cobb obviously proved to be who he is. And I created a intense but also friendly rivalries. They kind of went back and forth a little bit, but I think ultimately they had so much respect for one another's game, and they obviously celebrated a lot of great things. So going to the card, this card can get rather pricey, but I did see this one that looked pretty nice. It might have been trimmed, altered in some way, maybe tape stains on the back, but for $150 to get a top-notch Hall of Fame pre-war player like Sam Crawford, I think is a worthwhile investment. And you really get to learn more about the player that Sam Crawford was and the amount of respect that he had for Ty Cobb ultimately and just the game itself. Johnny Evers. So Johnny Evers, he was a MVP in 1914, a 3-time World Series champion, 2 times with the Cubs, and he is part of the famous infield, if you don't know, of Tinkers to Evers to Chance. Now, Johnny Evers, a very common name amongst pre-war collectors. If you are a Chicago fan, Johnny Evers is definitely somebody you want to have in your collection. If you are a pre-war fan, I think it's a very worthwhile player to collect and to have in your collection. And this one in particular, he has, I think, 3 cards in the T206 set. And in this one in particular, it shows the bat on his shoulder and the Cubs jersey. And this one was a PSA 1 that went back in January with REA for $228. It's a really nice looking card, actually. I don't know why it got a 1. Maybe there might be something on the back, but this one is a sweet corporeal back to it. And I think he is a very good player to have if you are, again, stepping into pre-war for the first time. This player is one of my favorite pitchers of the pre-war next to Christy Mathewson, and that is Addie Joss. What could have been, honestly, his career could have been miles ahead to be one of the premier pitchers like Walter Johnson, like Cy Young, like Christy Mathewson. Addie Joss, nicknamed the human hairpin, career second lowest ERA of 1.98, career record low, walks, hits, innings pitched at .968. He pitched 2 no-hitters and a perfect game, but sadly his life came to an end at the age of 31 to tuberculosis meningitis. This Addie Joss, he has a portrait, he has, I believe, the pitching. I don't know if he has a third one. I can't remember off the top of my head. I love this card in particular. It is a phenomenal card. It's actually less expensive than his portrait, as if you're not familiar, portraits tend to go for a little bit more, which is just their player profile picture. They're facing forward. And those cards tend to go for a little bit more. But this one, for a 2.5 at $204, is a phenomenal price. And like I mentioned, Addie Joss really had such a great future ahead of him. His career was really taking off, and you can see all the accolades and statistics that he had. It was just top-notch. And he's really a pitcher, in my mind, that just had so much promise. So, like I mentioned, this is a great card. It's a fairly inexpensive card if you're looking to step into Hall of Fame pre-war. And finally, I want to finish off with one of the shortest players to play the game. That is Willie Keeler, nicknamed Wee Willie. One of the greatest contact hitters of all time. When we think about great contact hitters, we think about how often are they striking out per at-bats. We think of players like Tony Gwynn, who rarely ever struck out. It was an absolute incredible statistic when you look at his numbers. But if we look at Willie Keeler, highest at-bats per strikeout ratio, every 63 or roughly 64 times he went up to bat he would strike out. Just imagine that. All the other times, he would never strike out. He would either ground out or get a base hit, whatever. It would just never strike out. And that to me is remarkable. Just someone who has a keen eye for the right pitch to hit. Now, he also has a lifetime 341 batting average and has a career of 2,932 hits. He sadly passed away, likely due to symptoms of tuberculosis, but he played a fairly long career, died at 51, which I imagine, at that time, it was tough to not come down with tuberculosis, which was pretty widespread at that time. So what a great career. Willie Keeler, great contact hitter. And in this case, this is a card which looks to me is phenomenal. An SGC1 with with a great look to it. It might be a little off center, but honestly, the way this card presents itself, you have the establishing shot, no issues on the surface, the name and the team on the bottom. This is a great Hall of Fame player for an amazing price that I'd recommend y'all to check out. You can look up all his information. And I didn't put this in the presentation, but there is a great book, which I will link in the description below, where you can learn about every Hall of Famer and Common and Southern Leaguer. In case you were looking to get into this T206 set, they call it the Monster for a reason because it has so many variations and nearly pretty much impossible to complete the entire set due to some of the big 4 cards that exist. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope I gave you some information about some pre-war cards that I think are fun to collect. And from there, it can really expand and vast and go in different directions, as there's so much more beyond the T206 that I think y'all will enjoy. So thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll go from there. Subscribe if you're new. Take care.